everyone. I'm sitting in Hunters Point Shipyard area of San Francisco. Super excited to be with Silvia Poloto, who's a mixed media artist. I became aware of your work, I believe, when she had a museum show, the Triton Museum, which is in Santa Clara, California. Amazing home art studio slash creative space that I had no idea, I wasn't prepared for, but it's incredible just to be surrounded by all your art. It's beautiful in the light and everything. So thank you so much for taking a little time out of your day to tell us about your art. And so maybe we could just jump in about, you've had a really colorful journey, and maybe just give us some hints as to where, how it started and how you've gotten to here. You have it's challenging because there's so many kinds of work you make, and so I want to hit everything, but there's no way I can. But we'll just try our best,
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
So the way the whole thing started, when I was a kid, I was artistic.
And this is in Brazil, right?
In Brazil,
You're born
yeah.
in Brazil,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
But I never really took it seriously, because it was as if liking art, and it was too girly, so I never really.
Because you were like a tomboy?
I was a tomboy, but like I have an older brother, and and he was, known for his brilliance and how smart he was, and I was the cute girl, and that was very annoying. I'm like, I'm just as smart. Why don't they say anything about that? So it was as if like I had to do something to prove that I was as smart as him, and I ended up being graduating an electrical engineer.
Wow.
And,
so you went like, I'll show I'm smart.
Yes, and I went to the same university he did, which is like known to be one of the best in Brazil. But that was never really me, But I did it anyways. I'm good at math.
Yeah. I did this, by the way, with marine biology. I mean, I thought that art was too easy, and I needed to be academic, and I just like to swim underwater and look at fish, but I didn't like chemistry, but I did it. I got a B, so.
And I wouldn't even consider like to be an artist, and I was never really exposed to any art growing up or anything. So I did that, and I wouldn't consider myself a creative person necessarily, but then I started working after I graduated, and it was not on a technical side. I actually, just when I was an intern, when I was doing internship, it was a technical side. Oh my God, I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I was as if I was looking for something. So I went on and I took my master's degree in business administration.
Wow.
And God. Why I was working? So it was like at night I did that, and it was like a very good course, and I came across advertising when I was doing it, and I'm like, I fell in love with it. I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool, I love it. I'm like, this is what I should have done. And I started doing certain things because I was in marketing, and it was a Brazilian company that I don't think they exist anymore, at least a section of it, but it was the biggest Brazilian company. They did computers and modems and printers and all of that. So I was in the data communications. So it's I convinced because they had an advertising agency that did that for the company, but I convinced the director of my section that's can I start doing that? And he let me.
Oh, great.
And so I was doing that kind of thing, and my plan was to eventually open my own advertising agency, and maybe focusing on industrial things. I don't know. It's
But what it was creative.
Yeah,
you saw an opening.
I'm like, oh my God! It was this.
Yeah.
This new thing opened up to me, this creative thing that I never thought it was there.
Yeah.
So and during this time, I met my husband, my then husband, my late husband. He was from Ireland, But we met in Brazil, and that's another story. But we met and got married super fast, like in 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so we were. The plan was to stay there with, you know, to live in São Paulo, as we were. But then he came up with an idea that to come here for something related to his business plan thing, and spend a year. So I'm like, okay, let me finish the school, and then we go, and it would be good for me to learn English and all, and when we come back, maybe I can open the advertising agency. And it was as if, like it was in 5 minutes
Yeah.
after I arrived here, I realized that I had done everything for the wrong reasons, and it was not like I knew who I was then, but I knew who I was not.
Yeah,
I saw, and I knew that was not me to be an engineer or anything related to it. I was still like, maybe it's advertising, but I wanted to, you know, as I was learning how to speak English, I was like thinking a lot, and I started making collages. Like I would cut up pieces of like magazines like Vogue or whatever, and make collages, and I became obsessed with it. And then I felt a need, and it was not like one might think that I went to a gallery or a museum and I saw something that inspired me. It was not like that. I don't know where this came from, but I got this need to work with metal, and I'm like, I have to work with metal, like make sculptures, and I had never seen one. And so I enrolled myself in this class that I thought it was that, but it wasn't. It was metal arts. But they were making jewelry, and I'm like, this is not really what I want to do. But I did little things, not exactly what I had in mind, but I was learning. And the teacher, he was very important. His name is Roger Baird. One day he was very supportive of me doing my weird things that I was doing. And one day I brought my collages for him to see, and he thought I had an art degree when he saw them. And that was very
confirming for you.
Yes, it was very important. And I'm like, and it was this the term was like in the middle, but he was so impressed. He walked that minute to the monoprint teacher, like
down the hall or whatever.
And he came to talk to me. I'm like, what is this? Like, it must be something good. And he let me start taking classes in the middle of and do whatever. So I started. You know, it was very important to have that, you know, recognition that there was something there. And then soon after that, the next semester, I think, he started teaching sculpture at Fort Mason. And then he said, you should come and, you know, maybe be my assistant. So I used the classroom as my studio because I helped out. And then after everybody was gone, I used it as my studio for a long time until I had my own welding studio. So I made so many sculptures, and I became like obsessed. I also did took some welding classes to become really good at it. So it was pretty much welded still. I did some monumental stuff. Now it's like when I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, I carry that around. And I cannot believe.
Like the pieces of metal.
I know, and even the you know, these huge things I would put in this car, I cannot believe. So I would move them around. And then I tried different things. I tried stone and metal.
Were you showing these to galleries at this point?
Yeah, so what happened that I was really I was so passionate about it. I was I had no idea. When I started making the sculptures, I had no idea that, you know, that I could be so happy doing something. I'm like, that's it. I know, I was born to make things like this, whatever this leads me. But
to make things, it wasn't. It could be anything, but
I was at that moment. This is what I was doing. So I was doing something that, you know, that would lead me to something else. But that, you know, I didn't see what was going to come, and I still don't, and that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I hope there are things that I don't know, but
so. This is Chico, right?
This is Chico. He's interviewing me too.
Yes.
So I tried with different things. I tried I did a bit of everything. I did wood sculptures and I did cement. and
Yeah, cool.
you know, stoned. I combine them.
Were you trying to do the advertising thing a little? Like, what were you?
No, like
you
yeah.
That opened the door.
That's,
you came up
no.
here and then just.
There was a part of me. This is really funny. As soon after I had arrived, I'm like, oh, maybe I should go and talk to advertising agency somewhere. Yeah. And I went and I talked to this guy, and he asked me this question. He's like, so are you an artist? And I'm like, no. Like, you know, that wouldn't even, I don't, like, I'm of course I was not offended, but I'm like, of course I'm not an artist. Do I have to be an artist to work in advertising? Why did he ask that question? But like, he was just trying to figure it out where I was at. And I never forget. I'm like, no.
Isn't it interesting?
I know, isn't that so funny?
How you can become without even wanting to become
I know.
But you are it.
And
you were always it, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. You know, like my husband was very supportive because then I didn't want to go back anymore, because going back to Brazil, I didn't even want to do the advertising thing anymore because I was pulled so strongly to this, to art and all of that. And I'm like, no. And to go back to Brazil and do that would be so difficult. And the main reason, there are many reasons, but the main would be the people expectations that, you know, is like, what am I doing? Like I'm an engineer or this or that.
Oh, right, because they
and
know
like
you
family
there,
and everybody. It's like, it would be a pain for me to be like, oh, okay, I'm doing this. And I felt like here I could be me and nobody had any expectations.
Right, of
you
course,
know, it's, and then Billy, he was very supportive, and he's like, oh, okay.
Wow, that's great.
You know, and so we
So you're
stayed.
able to keep making the work.
Yeah,
so you did the sculpture.
Some artists, I think they are very self-conscious, like they kind of are afraid to show. I was very much like, I wanted everybody to see it.
Really?
So yeah, I wanted like, look, I made this. And so I don't remember the first thing I showed, like the sculpture. I think there was this art curator that saw a piece, and then she gave me a lobby show, like a 333 Bush.
I've shown.
You have?
I have been in that space.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
It's sort of like by the elevators and
yes.
people go back and forth.
Yeah, it's a nice lobby.
Yeah.
So it's like I had it full of sculptures. It was my first solo show.
Wow.
And then it was kind of like a word of mouth. And then I did Open Studio, which was excellent.
Oh yeah.
I didn't shot. I was not here. I was in the Mission where I was for almost 20 years in the Mission, like in the same place. My studio was not there. My welding studio was, it was at the shipyard. It was here. Wow. Eventually, when I got my studio, it was here. But I had my painting studio at Shotwell, because soon after I started painting as well. But for a while, I just did sculpture, and I did photography, and then I started painting. But but then I had, like, you know, I got invited. One thing that I used to do that I don't do anymore, and I should, and I get upset at myself, I don't enter the competitions and things like that anymore. Like, but I used to submit, you know, the slides. Now.
Right. Now you
and I got several exhibitions with that in several places. And then at one open studio, I would sell a lot, and sculpture is a hard thing, but I did well. And I remember the very first open studio I did, this woman came in and she bought a piece. And then she asked me, she called me a couple of months later, and she was opening Hang Gallery. Do you know?
Yeah.
Shana McBurney.
Yeah.
So she said, I'm opening this gallery, and I want to know if you want to be part of it. And I'm like, sure. And I didn't realize it was going to be so cool. It was not, because then they changed, and they're just across the street now, but it was this very big space. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I think it was in 99 or something like that. And so that was great, right?
Yeah, got your work out.
Yeah, because then it kind of snows. It's like a snowball. Then someone sees, and I get a phone call. It was kind of like that.
And were you getting, like, did you know how to price your work? How did you have some artists help you?
No, I have a side of me that's, I think, is sensible.
Well, you have this business background, actually.
I don't think that, yes, maybe. But no, it's true. However, I don't know. I feel like this comes from another place. I don't think it's. If I didn't have this business background, I think I would know the same way. It's kind of like it is being sensible. Like some artists, if you start showing, like, be reasonable and you know,
sell the
like
work,
I always
but
say,
don't give it a fire sale.
Don't give it away. But also, you can always make another one, and you can raise the price on the next piece.
You need to sell this work.
You need to sell this work. A lot of artists I see, they do great work, but then they price it too high, and then they cannot start selling.
Right.
You know, because you cannot start selling super. So it's like I never really had a problem, like, you know, starting to, you know, and slowly building it up.
Did you start to assemble an idea of what you were doing, kind of an overall, like, what are you thinking? What do you think the work's about? And what was, you know,
like with the painting, it's kind of like, in a way, it's easier than sculpture for me. I didn't, like, of course, like but I struggled with that.
Yeah.
The welded steel, it was very much like a visual thing.
I mean, the criteria for, okay, this is done. This feels done. What is that feeling?
I know. I never had doubts about when it was done. It was a visual, like, it had to be visually right from every angle.
Right, balanced, or just feel resolved from all sides.
Yes. And now that's the question: is that enough? But it was for me when I was doing welded steel. But at one point, I guess, well, first of all, it was really hard for me to do everything. To make the sculpture and then to make the painting. And then I became a mom in the middle of that, and it was difficult. I would love to go back to sculpture, but I had to let something go. So it's like I have not done sculpture in quite a while, but I really enjoyed it.
So you moved into the painting.
Yes. And what it made it, the transition, like, I was already with Hang, so when because I had tried to paint, but I kind of like didn't really feel like there was anything there. And then at one point I'm like, oh my God, I really like what I'm doing. So I showed them and they liked it. And so I started showing my paintings at the gallery as well.
Which is great, because that's what they specialize in. I mean, that's easy for them. Yeah.
So, and then after that, you know, I hate to say it, but painting is easier. And it not only like to store it, you know, it's like if you have I ended up selling all the sculptures I had, but I feel for sculptors, you know. Yeah,
sure, the studio.
Yeah, and like, where are you going to put it if you don't sell it? You know, how much space do you have?
Yeah.
And paintings, it's like it's easier to sell and easier to store.
Right.
And like I was lucky that I was able to move my work. But you know, but I was completely obsessed. I made so many, I cannot even believe.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if have you ever seen any of my sculpture?
I haven't seen real ones, but I've seen photos. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and so but it seems like, you know, your enthusiasm and your passion, you can just direct it over here into painting or into the mixed media or into the resin work or the, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I try to change, because I was telling you earlier that if I were to stick with something, you know, like, I would be bored. For me, that wouldn't work.
Right.
So it's like I do a series where I really explore, like, whatever that is. It could be different things, but like a theme, let's say, and then like I go and move on, and for the most part I change the materials when I change a series, not always, but you know. So I have used, in different series, I have used like different materials and different approach.
Right, to keep it
fresh and to keep me excited.
Yeah.
And you know, and I have done things that you have seen, like the fiberglass that.
Right. So you moved into the painting, and then you were also doing, I mean, you started in collage, so that was a natural, like some of the work you're doing now, some of these larger pieces.
Yes.
It is painting, but you're just
It's
using
painting
collage.
with paper. It is collage.
Yeah. And then, but then you also use your photography
Yes.
in the fiberglass work, which is, explain a little bit how those are so cool. You're actually building the forms for the imagery, you know, with the fiberglass and building it out.
Yes.
That's so interesting. I've never seen that. I mean, I know about that because of building surfboards and creating, you know, I had a boat where we had to put a fiberglass bottom in it, and, you know, but I never thought about you're actually making the support for the art.
I know.
And the art at the same time. It's such a cool idea.
Yeah, I started with using resin many years ago.
And this is like the surfboard resin catalyst, the sticky kind? Or
I don't think it's a surfboard. I think the surfboard is a different one. The one that I started using, I think back in 2004, I think I did my first. It's just, when I did a collage, let's say, a colorful collage, and mix with painting. Like I did this vertical formats. I started this a long time ago. And
I've seen those, yeah.
So I felt that when I did my first one, I liked it, but I felt like I needed something to bring everything together. So I came up with the idea of pouring resin on the top of it.
Yes.
And then I came up with this other idea to also use resin when I did props for my photography. So it's like a lot of the photography that I have done, it's not the traditional like landscape or portrait and stuff like that. It doesn't excite me enough. Like, so I created images. I mean, I created these weird things with the only purpose was to take an image of that. So, example, after I had poured on a panel, like there was some left on the bucket and something fell in there. And then I looked at it, I'm like, I could do an image of this weird thing. So I started creating these props that I call props, where I put a layer of resin, then I threw some objects in there. And then I put another layer, and then I would do a drawing and print on transparent film and drop it in there. So it's like I was left this very weird looking thing. And my only purpose to make this weird thing, it was for me to take a picture.
Oh, so the final result was the photo.
It was the photograph. And I have some around. You have seen at least one or two things like that.
They get this diffused quality.
Yes. And they get like this depth.
But why wouldn't you want to have instead of the photograph being it's like you're photographing the art, why couldn't you just, I mean, you've done this, right? The actual photo, the object you're photographing is the final object.
The thing?
Yes.
No, that looks terrible.
So but
it's the only
but that process can make beautiful work.
No, I could, and I have done. But the things I'm talking about, it was just like the purpose, and then I could throw it away.
So then
maybe I save
you crop
one.
it and get this really cool photo.
Yeah, exactly. I get the photo, and then I print it on watercolor paper, and then I add.
And you would do this. This would be like, you know, an inkjet printer, which is beautiful quality.
Yes.
Would you print this yourself?
No.
Or you just go get someone to do it. Yeah.
And so I did that, and then I had this other idea to use resin. And I didn't know how. Like I wanted to build to have a mold and build the whole thing to be resin and fiberglass.
Right. So we are talking about, it's like a panel, with a 2-inch deep panel.
Exactly.
12 by 12.
So it's a mold.
Yeah. So you create a mold.
I create a mold. So it's like I made several, like 25 to start with, pieces that were 9 by 9, and I did the work on rice paper. So it's like I photograph objects that I either made or I found, weird looking things. And so I got the piece. So it's like I put the fiberglass and the resin and build like as if it was a sculpture, right?
Yeah.
And then I laid the rice paper there.
And the rice
and then
paper,
it dissolves in there.
Right, the rice paper just, when it gets wet, it just kind of disappears.
Yes, so you just see the image.
Yeah, yeah.
And
so
then,
were you
like,
printing on the rice paper, your image?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so you saw some.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I did that. So like I tried, you know, so it's not just, okay, I pour it when, you know, like I want to do other things with it.
You know, your aesthetic and your sensitivity of the things that we're surrounded by in all your work, and I know for you it's very disparate, and in a way it is, maybe more so than a lot of artists, because you're using different materials and you're not afraid to walk into sculpture yard, you know, sculpture arena, and then mixed media, resin, photography, painting. But you know, when you're taking a photograph, or like, do you have a sense of what it is you're after? Do you like what, when it's like you walk outside and you're taking a picture, is, you know, it's like, you know, you're not taking pictures of landscapes, but you're taking,
like I do.
Is it just an emotional, visceral connection?
I think
is unifying all this work?
Yes, it does. Like this visceral connection, it does unify all the work.
It all hangs together, but I don't know why it does, and that's why I'm curious.
I know, it's interesting. You see,
totally
it does. Because I mean, like if you walk here and you see different works from different series, you can tell it was the same artist who did them all, right? It's not like all over the place.
No.
But at the same time, they're so different. But like, for example, when these works that I did for the Triton show, I kind of like had an idea what I was looking for, and they were, you know, I kind of like had an idea in my mind. Of course, I didn't have the completely defined thing, but I had, and the same with the photographs.
So for this show, for the Triton show, what was the kind of the idea or the notion that you were investigating?
Yeah, like I wanted to create a new body of work, and I was showing that main room, and that's a difficult room to show because the walls are strange. So I went there, the first thing is like I measured the walls, and I knew like what sizes I wanted. And then I had just come back from Brazil. My mom had passed away, and my dad had died before that, and my husband had died before that, and my best friend had died. So it was kind of autobiographical work, but it was not like about me. It was about the idea human condition. The human condition, and you know, it's not about, it's a universal. I talk about the personal, but just to connect with the universal. That's the way I see it, because it's like, you know, I'm a woman, I'm a widow, I'm a mother, I'm an immigrant. But my work doesn't become about those things. But I just can talk from my own personal experience. But what I want is to connect with other people.
Absolutely. And
with universal.
The work does. That's the strength of it. It's very obtuse and generous and open and interpretive.
And it's easier seen in the work that I use imagery, and then like I write the artist's statement, and it's more, it kind of like is easier for you to see that. But when the work is abstract, it's the same thing, but you know.
Well, your work that has photography in it, it's all abstract to me.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, it's more like poetry than a literal picture.
I thought that, like I saw your website, it's like you said your work is visual poetry.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's
yeah. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, it's very much like I thought about that. You know, that's the way I see my work.
Yeah, it's like you know, it's like a sampling. It's like you're creating this world that makes sense somehow, and that's what the big mystery is. You know, that you can see a person's work and it all makes sense. It all fits together, but you don't know how or why. But even people who are not educated in art can feel it, and that's what I love, right? So when someone comes to a show and they have a visceral, they have just a connection. I want that in my life, and they don't even know why, but you're connecting with them, which
yeah,
is
and you don't
so
even,
cool.
I know, and that's
Yeah,
like
because I've never
what
been
my
a big,
work does.
and in a way, we have a similar thing. Like I really don't know where I'm going. I've never been really a big one for trying to come up with a really verbose, highly intellectual explanation of what I'm making. It just feels forced. I'm
Yes.
pretty find my way as I go artist.
I feel the same way.
When you look back, as we're sitting in this room looking at all this work, it's very, very powerful. But it was not orchestrated. It was not planned. It was not. But it looks like it's been just. It's like a symphony. You know, it's like when we look behind us, it makes so much sense, right? Like how you started with collage, and then when you can look back, it makes more sense.
I
But
know.
at the time, it was like, I don't know, what the hell? I'm just going to sit here and cut up Vogue magazines. It's illogical, you know.
I know. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
It's a real leap. You know, it's a real thing of faith. And I know from reading and listening to, and seeing little videos of you that how do you keep going? I mean, the building we're in that you purchased and you described you built this place and took it over. It was a falling down factory church. And I mean, especially you're alone. You're alone doing this, taking on these projects and being an artist. I mean, I'm thinking of, artists that are listening to us. Like, how do you keep excited and keep moving forward in this?
Like during the difficult times, like when I was doing this
and you're a
place,
mom.
yeah,
oh my
and
God.
when like my husband was sick, for example, and when he died, like when I look back, like throughout these things, right? Like how did I keep going? I try not to look. I couldn't. It's not even that I was doing that consciously. I couldn't look further enough, like. Let me imagine when this building will be ready, it's just in it. So it's like, what can I do today? Even if it's not about like going to the studio and making this amazing piece today, but it's like, what can I do today? Even if I don't feel inspired,
feel like going, right?
Because like for the most part, like I go to the studio and, most days nothing really happens. Like that I'm happy with, and then it really happens.
Yeah. So you go to the studio. Do you go to the studio every day?
I try to go to the studio every day.
Which is just down you're 100 yards down the road.
Yeah. It's hard and it's frustrating sometimes that I have so much. People forget that's the business side of it, and like the bills I have to pay, and I have to go to the supermarket, and I have to drive Liam around.
And your son just arrived with getting hit by a bus in Barcelona.
I know.
Now you're a nurse.
And so, it's hard because life takes, sometimes people don't realize, they think being an artist, it's so much easier than, well, I wouldn't trade for anything, right? It's like to have a job, but it's like if you go and have a job, something that I'm very thankful I don't have to do. But let's say it's 9 to 5 or whatever. Yeah. And then like it's their time to do whatever they want.
It segments their day. Yeah, like, just go do that thing.
And then you can do, like me, it's 24/7. Right. Like I'm on it. And there's something, if I didn't do it yesterday, I need to do it today.
Right.
It's like I have to pay my sales tax for, the deadline is July 31st, and I'm dreading, but I have to do that kind of stuff. That's like nobody, like an artist does that. It's not just painting, right?
Right.
It's like I wish.
Right. And do you have this really nice, large space where a lot of your work can be shown. Do you work a lot with galleries now, or is it half galleries? Do you get a lot of commissions, or do you just sell the work out of your studio?
Yeah, I do sell the work out of my studio because like I have a following and people that.
How do you stay in touch with them? Do you email them?
I should be doing more than I do. I started doing a newsletter a few years ago where like I would send 4 newsletters a year listing shows and stuff. And I find it even hard. I have sent this year, but I'm not on it as I should. So that's pretty much what I
But you have
what
a
I
following
do.
of people that you get
Yeah,
calls.
I have a follower, and I get
hey,
calls.
can I come down?
Someone saw a friend, they went to their house and they saw a painting of mine, and then they called me, or you know.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of like repeat people that have my work and want more. I have like some people, they have over 40 pieces of my work.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But the good thing is like I have this particular couple, and they live in Palo Alto, and they have a flat here in San Francisco too. They have works on different series, so it's like you cannot even tell. It's not full with the same thing, you know. Like
Right,
sure.
Sure.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And
that's what you want. You know,
yes.
It's great. People are interested in what you're doing now,
I know.
and they're interested in what you're going to do next week.
And but I do work with galleries. I have a few galleries in different states. Here in San Francisco, I have the SF MoMA gallery.
Oh yeah, the rental gallery.
Yeah. They're good.
Yeah.
But you know, like I have Park City. You show there too, Julie Nestor.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
right,
I was
right.
one of the. When she moved, we used to work. I don't know if you were working with her before.
No.
Yeah, so she was from the Bay Area, and then when she moved, she asked me if I wanted to be in the gallery. And then I have a few other galleries in
Well, it's great that you're able to, work with galleries and then also work with people who come, and, a lot of artists are, it just depends. I mean, it's great that you can work. Do you do many commissions with?
I have done it's not like the main, like, most people, they buy what I have done, right? But I do get requests for commissions.
And do you have just your price list and everything's kind of set and this is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's and I also work with art consultants. What's good, they bring clients here, or they need a presentation, so they need images. And I don't mind having people over, but it takes time.
Sure.
It should be in the studio painting, but I don't mind at all. I know like some artists, they are not very social.
Yeah.
Like, but I do open studio and all of that. Like, and my dream is like just to do that. I enjoy doing that, but I also have to do that because I have to sell my work.
Right.
Ideally, I didn't have to see anyone. I just do my work and someone else deals with everything else.
That would be your...
Yeah, and if I appear, it's because I want to. It's not because I have to. Even though I always enjoy having people over, like,
but you have, I mean, you have your friends, you're social, it's not like there's no shortage of conversations to have.
Yes. I like that part of making art, that I'm by myself.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to see anyone.
Right.
And I want to be
on
my own.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know, like, do I remember like some artists complaining about that? It's very solitary. I'm like, I like that.
Yeah, no, it's a thing. I was just talking to an artist about this, and he was saying, we're in a studio, and he was saying, it's crazy. I've spent 30 years standing in front of that wall this far away from it by myself, looking at things. But,
yes.
It's like a prison sentence in a way for some people, but it is very captivating and interesting, obviously, because you're making things.
Yeah, but, and you are with yourself, right?
Yeah,
like I find that process like it's like a self-discovery.
Totally.
Right? Like you are with yourself.
It's changing all the time. It really is extraordinarily interesting what we can make, how the whole thing unfolds, how, you were saying a piece of collage falls into the bucket of resin, you look down, off you go on a whole nother series, I love that. I love how things just unfold in the most magical of ways,
Yes.
So what's exciting for you right now? What are you most excited about?
Well, I'm still working, like my latest work is the works with paper.
These are gorgeous.
Yeah, yes. So it's...
and they're large. I wasn't prepared for the size
those
of it.
works are super hard to see like online, like on a computer screen.
It's so subtle.
Because it's very subtle. It's very hard to photograph.
Yeah.
you know, because you cannot see all the different whites.
Right.
And that's like important, and all the little,
yes,
you know, imperfections and all of that. So it's difficult.
Where are you finding, I mean, what I love about them is just all these neutrals. What kind of paper is this?
You know what that is? Like, have you been or heard of scrap?
Yes, in the East Bay.
No. It's
right,
just around the corner here. So it's like
place.
Most of the paper is from there. So what it is like posters, like San Francisco posters, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, art posters. And I use the back of it.
Of course. Right.
So it's good because there are different whites. There's some that are older or whatever, and then they kind of yellowish.
Yes.
And you know, sometimes it's rare, but I have bought, like I have gone to an art store and bought some paper just for a little nuances of like color, like. But for the most part, it's paper.
And
I found.
And on these collages, I mean, what I'm looking at is a 6 foot by 6 foot collage. What's the process you use? Are these on panels?
It's on panels, yes, because canvas would be impossible. So it's like wood panels, and I just start gluing this paper.
What kind of glue do you use?
I use gel medium.
Gel medium.
And I just like to make sure I pull and really with the squeegee sort of thing.
Are you putting gel medium on the panel, then you put the piece of paper on, and then you squeegee
it dry? No, not on the panel. I put it on the
paper.
On the paper. You would not believe, and it's how like okay. So
that's actually really important.
No, it's insane. So, because I don't see this happening, and then I'm like, what?
Because it starts buckling.
No, so I push it right, and then without knowing, I do this right, either on my pants. Or on the chair,
I totally
or on the wall, like I don't see. And then after, I'm full, like I have these pants that they can stand up. Or my chair is disgusting.
Yeah.
It has this leg and I don't even remember ever doing that.
Yeah.
But it's all that glue.
I'm completely the same thing. God. When I cook, it's like people like, what are you doing? You know, but it's all about that thing. I'm cutting up Brussels sprouts. It's okay if I lose 3 in the process. It's like, it's important. I got to get them done to get them in the thing, the timing, you know. So I completely relate to that.
So it's like if it buckles, sometimes it does, right? And you think it's a catastrophe that it buckled.
Right.
But then what I do, I'm not going to leave a buckle. So let's say I cut it and then I pull, and then there's this cool, magic
opening.
And you know, as you know very well, you know, sometimes when it's working really well, it's like you are there, but you're not really there. And then you start, and your hand just goes and grabs the stuff, and you don't even know what you're grabbing. And it's grabbing the right thing.
Right.
And it's like, how is that possible? Isn't that so weird?
It's so cool.
It's so cool,
you know, and so I teach a lot of artists and, you know, principles of art making. And one of the main ones, the primary ones that I'm talking more and more about is intuition. As actually, like, that's the main one. That's what most of the work has, intuition in it. You got to learn that. You got to develop that skill. You got to exercise that muscle of intuition. I don't totally understand it, but what you're describing.
You don't have to understand. You are not supposed to understand it.
But it's definitely a huge piece of art making. Just that.
I think that's why, you know,
just
don't you think?
Move.
Do you have?
It's crazy.
I feel like sometimes I kind of like, oh, it would be so great if I had gone to art school, but sometimes like, I don't know if that would have been a good thing. When I was so
in... Yeah, that's right. You're completely self-taught, really.
Yes, but like when I started making art and like the teachers like at City College when I was doing it, they're like, I go to the Art Institute, like, and I got a merit scholarship to go to the Art Institute. And I went like for 3 weeks. And then I'm like, if I didn't have a degree, I think it's a good thing to have a degree, but I do have it. And I have no intentions of teaching, like that's not me to teach. So it's like, I'm not going, like I know what I want to do, right? And then, this is right for me. I'm not saying that's right for other people, but for me. And then like, this is just one thought that I had. I have this friend of mine who is an artist. And I remember one time, like I was doing this thing, and then she said, you cannot do this, like some thing, like some design advice. I'm like, what do you mean? And it's like, no, because she went to art school, she took a design class.
Yes,
and
right,
it was a rule that you don't do
right.
something. I'm like, are you kidding me? You are going to let that get in the way? I'm nervous. Maybe not, but I feel like if I had learned, like, you're not supposed to do this.
Right.
So it's like if that would kind of
it would
stop me.
Well, what you do is you learn all those rules, and you get good teachers and bad teachers, and
then you create your own.
But then you have to sort it out, and then they're basically starting where you started. You know, when you came to San Francisco and you're sitting in your bedroom cutting up Vogue magazines. Eventually, you have to unpack it all for yourself, totally, and follow your own decision making, your own discernment.
Yes,
absolutely. But yeah, unpacking all that and not having it, I mean,
it's
great.
I know exactly where things should go.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and but you probably don't, and I don't know this, but maybe you couldn't articulate why things go.
No, because it looks right.
Yes, but the design formally, and I do teach, so I mean I could talk about the design of your work. It's so exquisite and it's so perfectly balanced, and it's answering all the rules or the principles. And I don't even use the word rules. I use principles, overarching ideas to help you. But what I love is that you can find your way just intuitively, which is what you do. And so can the viewer. The viewer can come along. They don't need to know design to know if something's good. Mm-hmm. But if one picture has strong design and another doesn't, and someone doesn't know anything about art, they'll choose the stronger one every time, which I love, you know. It's like a language we can know, but nobody else needs to know, but they can understand it. You know, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like I don't know, like, would I be a better artist if I had gone to art school? Like, I will never know.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't, yeah.
But I made a decision, like, it was a gut feeling. I'm like, this is not for me right now. Who knows, you know?
Oh, no.
One day. But it was not for me at that time.
The whole point of school is to help you, you know, keep walking forward. And hopefully when you get in a rhythm marching, you have teachers and you're paying all this money, and then you get out of school and then everyone goes away and you kind of keep walking along and it feels kind of weird, and hopefully you can kind of keep going. Most people don't, right? Most people who go to art schools don't become artists, don't continue with it. It's too daunting. And that's in that question I asked you. It's like, well, how did you do it? You know, how did you manage when it's hard to kind of keep going? And, you know, like, because they're extremely rare.
Yes, like I had no choice. Like I have this compulsion.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I just have to do it.
Yeah.
I have to go to the studio and I have to do it.
Yeah. So for, you know, what kind of advice would you give someone who's just starting out, who's peering into this video, and they have a hunch that they want to do something? Maybe they're just starting in their career, or, you know.
Well, like, number one is keep making the work, right?
Yeah. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Have, you know, make the work. Even if you go to the, it doesn't, you know, maybe a lot of people think that every day when we go to the studio, something amazing happens.
Right.
And they might go and they get discouraged when nothing happens. It's like the majority of days, like, nothing happens. But you need that. Without that, the good wouldn't come, right?
Yeah. It's like, you know, crappy, good, crappy,
yes.
good, crappy. You know, you could never do good. It was just
not even it can't. Like, it needs the time for you to figure it out and all of that. But so, like, keep making the work. Now, it's a hard thing to say, like, go and show your work, because I don't know. Like, a lot of people, they have this. They don't want the work to be seen.
Yes.
Like, you know, and that's fine. If they're happy, just, you know, they have a job that they don't necessarily love, but then they do their work, and that's the life they want. They put it in the garage, they don't show any. That's nothing wrong with that. But if you do want to the art to become your life, not to have, you know, it's possible. I feel like everybody that is passionate about their art.
It's available.
It is, right? Some artists, I guess they're luckier than others. Like it's like that my work connects with a large group of people. Some artists, they make work that's more difficult.
Absolutely.
Right? So, but that doesn't mean that's impossible. They just have to find that.
Find a little group of people.
Yeah. So it's like, my advice would be start showing, like,
put it up.
Put it up, yeah.
Yeah, put it up.
Unless you don't want to, then nobody's going to force anyone to do anything.
Right. Well, often the I don't want to is connected to, you're not confident, you want to be seen. Are you an artist? Hell no. You know, like all of that.
Yeah.
But I think sharing your work, at least what I teach, is sharing your work is a key piece of developing your work. I really believe that. I think it does something to you. You know, when people get a reaction, and then friends saw this and they thought it looked like this, and really, you think my work looks like that? You know, you gain all this extra. It's too easy to become just you in your studio and your work, and it's a small world, and you need to bring in all this stuff to develop. I think so. You know, but I think that's great advice. Absolutely,
yeah, I mean, you know, it's definitely, there is a space, there is a place for everybody.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it's just to keep showing up.
Right? Yeah, right, totally.
I guess maybe that's the hardest thing for most people.
Yeah.
You know.
The transitions from am I creative? Can I make something? It's a big step. It's just a big step, and I think that's what's so inspiring to see people. I mean, that's what I'm interested in. You know, it was a big step for me, but then to see how people navigate that gap, how they did it, how they, you know, like, it's so fascinating.
I know, like, you know, when as I said, when I made I was doing before, and I felt pretty good about, like, I'm creative, look, I'm doing this, and I couldn't stop myself. But I think when I made my first welded steel piece, that was really cool, and I got the sense that, like, nothing could stop me. Right, like I just, you know, I'm like,
the making of the work gives you the momentum.
I saw it done, and I'm like, it was like as if I had not done that. The work had come through me or something, and it was like my responsibility, like being there for the work to come through me. That I had to share that with the world.
Right. That idea that, you know, it's like you owe it to the rest of the world to show this. And I also think that by you doing it, it gives other people that idea of permission, you know, like, and this is totally true. I mean, people see what you're making and how you're doing this, and they think, well, maybe I too could do something. Maybe not as big, but I can take that little step.
I never thought, like, if I look back, when oh my God, there is no way I would ever see myself in this place with all this art.
It's so
like
cool.
When I was working as an engineer.
It's so cool.
I'm like, it would have never come across my mind. And I would think, like, this is not possible.
Right.
So for other people out there that don't believe that it's possible, anything is possible.
Yeah.
But another piece of advice is to dream the impossible. If you're going to dream, why are you going to dream small? Right?
Yeah.
If you're going to
because it's just a goddamn dream.
Just dream like the impossible.
Yeah.
I kept saying that I wanted a 6,000 square feet warehouse. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Right.
I'm like, but, you know, why not just be reasonable?
Put it in the hopper.
1,200 feet. Why? I'm like, if I'm going to dream, I might as well dream big, right?
Yeah.
And
here we are.
I know.
Here we are.
I know, but even I forget that sometimes, and
No, that's great.
All of us. It's not like I'm not all the time. Oh, create. I'm like, you know, I have bad moments.
Absolutely, it's a journey.
I hate everything I do. I suck. Right? Which is very normal.
It's normal. It's just part of it.
Exactly.
Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing your whole world with us today, and it's just really inspiring. And your dog, what's the dog's
Chico.
name? Chico.
Yes.
Thank you, Chico, for being part of this.
Okay, Chico. You are welcome, and thank you
Yeah.
for the opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
Great.